The restaurant hummed with a gentle symphony of silverware against porcelain, hushed conversations floating beneath the glow of pendant lights that cast everything in warm amber. Outside, the city moved in its usual Friday evening rhythm, but inside this particular corner of the world, time seemed to slow, to soften, to wait. Table 7 sat near the floor-to-ceiling windows, draped in white linen that caught the candlelight. A single rose rested in a slender vase at the center, petals the color of hope and hesitation. A single rose rested in a slender vase at the center, petals the color of hope and hesitation. Across from the empty chair, a woman sat with her hands folded carefully in her lap, her posture upright despite the sleek wheelchair that held her. Her dress was the pale blue of early morning skies, golden hair falling in soft waves past her shoulders, framing a face that carried quiet weight in remarkable sea-green eyes. She had learned long ago not to expect too much from moments like these. Her name was written on a reservation card somewhere, but the man she was supposed to meet knew nothing about her except what an algorithm had decided might be compatible. No photos, no surnames. She had chosen this anonymity deliberately, tired of being seen as a collection of headlines and limitations before anyone bothered to know her heart. Across the restaurant, a man stood studying a crumpled piece of paper in his calloused hand. He wore a button-up shirt in deep charcoal, ironed with care but still carrying faint creases of a man unaccustomed to formal wear. His jeans were dark, his boots leather but worn. He had the build of someone who worked with his hands, broad shoulders, forearms, marked with old scars that told stories of engines and lessons learned the hard way. His hair, dark brown and slightly too long, was pushed back from his face, revealing eyes that held both kindness and exhaustion. He glanced at the paper again. Table 7. His buddy had set this up as a joke, signing him up for some dating app and securing a reservation at a place he couldn't afford using a radio contest voucher. The plan had been simple: show up, have a free meal, then go home to his small apartment where his daughter's toys still cluttered the floor. He hadn't wanted to come. But after 3 years of turning down every offer of companionship, he had finally relented, just this once. He scanned the dining room until he found it. Table 7, by the windows, where a woman sat alone, bathed in candlelight, beautiful in a way that made his breath catch. He didn't notice the wheelchair at first, only the gentle curve of her profile, the way her fingers traced absent patterns on the tablecloth, the sadness that seemed to hover around her like a veil. As he approached, she turned her head slightly, and their eyes met for the first time. In that moment, something began that neither had planned for, neither had expected, and neither would ever be able to undo. He reached the table and cleared his throat softly, suddenly aware of how out of place he felt. He glanced at the brass number. 7. This had to be right. He lowered himself into the chair, his movements careful, the linen napkin feeling foreign in his rough hands. For a moment, neither spoke. Then her voice came, soft, almost musical. "Excuse me," she said, tilting her head slightly. "I think you might be at the wrong table." He blinked, confusion washing over him. He held up the paper. "This is table 7, right?" She nodded slowly. "It is, but I'm supposed to be meeting someone else." Understanding dawned, followed by embarrassment. He started to stand, already apologizing, already preparing to retreat. But then she did something unexpected. "Wait," she said, and there was something in her voice now, something like loneliness wrapped in hope. "Could you maybe stay for a while? Just until he shows up? I'd rather not sit here alone." He froze, caught between his instinct to flee and something deeper that responded to the quiet vulnerability in her request. Slowly, he lowered himself back into the chair. She exhaled softly, and her smile grew a fraction wider. "Thank you. I know it's awkward." He shook his head. "No, it's okay. I think I'm in the wrong place anyway." "Might as well make the best of it." She laughed then, a sound like wind chimes, light and unexpected. It broke something in the air between them, some invisible barrier. He found himself smiling back, a real smile that reached his eyes for the first time in longer than he could remember. A waiter appeared, placed menus on the table, poured water, and withdrew. They watched each other over the leather covers, two strangers who had accidentally collided, both aware that something unusual was happening. "I'm guessing you don't do this often," she said. "Blind dates." He laughed, a short sound that held more truth than humor. "No. My friend set this up. I didn't even know about it until this morning. She nodded. Mine was set up too. I wanted to meet someone who didn't know anything about me first. Just me, without context. He studied her, curiosity replacing discomfort. That sounds like there's a story there. There is, she said simply, then let the words hang in the air. He opened his menu, scanning items in flowing script, all of them expensive. His eyes widened at the prices. She noticed and spoke gently. Don't worry about the prices. Order whatever you want. You're doing me a favor by sitting here. Let me return it. Something in her tone told him arguing would be pointless, so he nodded. When the waiter left, they were alone again. He leaned back slightly. So what do we do now? Talk, she said. Like people do, she considered, her fingers playing with her water glass. Tell me something real. Not the things you'd say to impress someone. Tell me something true. The request caught him off guard, but something about this moment made him want to answer honestly. I have a daughter, he said. She's 5. She's the reason I wake up every morning and the reason I'm terrified every single day that I'm not enough for her. The vulnerability in his voice was palpable. She didn't look away, didn't offer platitudes. She simply listened, giving him space. Her mother, he continued quietly, she died when my daughter was born. Complications. So it's been just the two of us since the beginning. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken pain. She reached across the table slowly, her hand resting gently on his. I'm sorry, she said, and those 2 words carried more weight than all the sympathy he'd received in 3 years. He squeezed her hand gently and released it. Your turn. Tell me something real. She was quiet for a long moment, her gaze drifting to the window. When she spoke, her voice carried the same vulnerability. 3 years ago, I was in a car accident. The other driver was drunk. I lost the use of my legs that night. The words fell between them like stones into still water. He didn't react with shock or pity, didn't let his eyes drop to the wheelchair. He simply held her gaze, letting her see that this changed nothing. She continued, words coming faster. My family tried to be supportive at first, but over time I became a burden, a problem to solve. My father stopped looking at me like I was his daughter, and started looking at me like I was his greatest failure. So I moved out, found my own place, learned to build a life that doesn't need anyone's permission or pity. He nodded slowly. That's why the app. Why no photos? She smiled, sad around the edges. I wanted someone to see me first. Before they saw this, she gestured to the wheelchair. I wanted to know if anyone could still see a woman worth knowing, worth more than sympathy. He leaned forward, his voice low and intense. I see a woman wearing a blue dress who asked a stranger to stay because she was brave enough to admit she didn't want to be alone. I see someone who's been through hell and came out the other side, with enough hope left to try again. That's what I see. Her breath caught, tears suddenly bright in her eyes, though she blinked them back. No one had spoken to her like that in so long, with such simple, devastating honesty. Their food arrived, breaking the intensity, giving them both space to breathe. They ate in comfortable silence, occasionally exchanging observations. The ease between them grew with each passing minute, as if they had known each other for years. He told her about his auto repair shop. She told him about her photography, how a wheelchair gave her unique perspectives. They talked about music, food, the city. Time moved differently at their table. The restaurant around them emptied, but at table 7, neither noticed. They were too caught up in the unexpected gift of connection, of being seen. She was laughing at something he'd said when the interruption came. A man appeared beside their table, tall and overdressed in a suit that screamed entitlement. His hair was perfectly styled, his expression a mixture of confusion and disgust. He looked at the woman in the wheelchair, then at the man across from her. His face twisted. You're in a wheelchair? This is a joke, right? The words cut through the atmosphere like a blade. The restaurant fell silent. Heads turned. Eyes found their table. She froze, her face draining of color, as humiliation crashed over her. Her fingers began to shake. This was the moment she had feared, when reality intruded, when he would realize what he'd gotten into and leave. But that's not what happened. The man across from her stood slowly, his movements controlled, carrying quiet authority. He positioned himself between her and the intruder, his presence suddenly larger. I'm the one sitting with her, he said, his voice calm but carrying steel. "Who are you?" The well-dressed man sneered. "I'm her date. Or I was supposed to be," he gestured dismissively. "But clearly there's been a misunderstanding. Nobody told me I'd be wasting my evening on damaged goods." The words hung in the air, toxic and vile. Gasps rose from other tables. The man who had been sitting at table 7 didn't raise his voice. He simply took one step closer, his posture radiating controlled danger. "You need to leave. Now." The intruder laughed nervously. "Or what? You'll fight me? Do you have any idea who I am?" "I don't care," came the reply, simple and absolute. "You disrespected her. That's all I need to know." For a moment, tension crackled. Then the intruder seemed to realize he was outmatched in something more fundamental than money. He scoffed, turned on his heel, and strode out. The restaurant remained silent. Then, slowly, applause began, spreading through the room, warm and affirming. But he didn't hear it. He had already turned back to her, his expression soft with concern. He knelt beside her wheelchair, bringing himself to her eye level. "Are you okay?" She stared at him, tears streaming freely. He had defended her, not for show, but because protecting her had been the only thing that mattered. His hand moved slowly, and when she didn't pull away, he gently wiped a tear from her cheek. "I think," she managed, "I think I'd like to leave now." He nodded immediately, offering his hand. She took it, and together they left, him walking slowly beside her wheelchair, his presence a constant shelter. Outside, the night air was cool and clean. They didn't go far, just to a small park across the street where a bench sat beneath a street lamp, facing a fountain that caught the light. She wheeled herself beside the bench, and he sat, giving them both space to breathe. For a long time, neither spoke. Finally, she found her voice. "You didn't have to do that." He looked at her seriously. "Yes, I did." She shook her head. "You don't even know me. We met by accident. You could have just walked away." He turned to face her fully, his eyes holding hers with intensity. "I could have," he said, "but I didn't want to. From the moment I sat down at that wrong table, from the moment you asked me to stay, something changed. I don't know what to call it yet. But I know that watching someone hurt you felt like watching someone hurt the most important person in my life." She couldn't breathe, could only feel the weight of his words. He continued, voice softer. "My daughter lost her mother before she ever got to know her. Every day I wonder if I'm enough. And tonight, sitting with you, I realize something. Being enough isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up. It's about staying. It's about seeing someone and choosing them over and over, even when it's hard." Her hand found his, fingers intertwining. "I've spent 3 years believing I wasn't enough anymore," she whispered, "that the accident took something fundamental away. Every person who looked at me with pity just confirmed what I feared, that I was less worthy of love, of being chosen." He squeezed her hand. "You're not less. You're exactly who you're supposed to be. And anyone who can't see that is the one missing something, not you." They sat like that for a long time, hands joined, hearts beginning to open. When they finally stood to leave, when he walked her to her van, when they exchanged phone numbers, the night felt different. She sat in the driver's seat, looking up at him. "Wrong table, right person," she said. He smiled. "Best mistake I ever made." That night, in 2 different parts of the city, 2 people who had been strangers that morning lay awake thinking about wrong tables and right moments and the unexpected ways that healing sometimes arrives. Neither knew yet where this would lead, what obstacles waited. But for now, they both held on to the same truth, that sometimes the best things in life happen when we sit down at the wrong table and choose to stay anyway. The weeks that followed carried a rhythm that felt both new and timeless. The coffee shop 3 blocks from his apartment became their meeting place. That first coffee turned into a walk through the park, him matching his pace to hers, discovering the city looked different from her perspective. Now it had become routine. She would text him, and he would rearrange his lunch break, leave the shop early. He started bringing his daughter to some outings. His daughter approached her with fearless curiosity, asking direct questions about the wheelchair. She answered with patience and honesty, never talking down. Within an hour, they were racing through the park, his daughter running alongside while she navigated the paths, both laughing with wild abandon while he watched, his heart so full it physically ached. That night, Tucking his daughter into bed, she wrapped her arms around his neck. I think she could be my friend, maybe even my almost mom. The words hit him with unexpected force. Because his daughter was right, this woman was becoming essential to both of them, but the world had other plans. A photograph appeared, taken by someone with a camera phone, showing them at the park looking like a family. The photo found its way to social media, then to someone who recognized her name from society pages. Within 48 hours, whispers began. Questions about what an heiress was doing, spending time with an auto mechanic. She saw it first. Her hands were shaking when she called him. Have you seen? She sent him the link. His silence turned to cold fury. Who had the right? I don't know, she said, voice breaking. But my father's office has already called. They want me to come in, to manage the narrative. His voice was tight. You don't owe them an explanation. I know, she whispered, but they'll come after you too. They'll make everything we have into something ugly. He was quiet. And in that silence, she heard all her fears confirmed. When he spoke again, his voice was softer but certain. I don't care what they say. The only thing I care about is you and whether you're okay. Are you okay? The question broke her. No, she admitted. I'm scared. Scared that this will ruin everything. Scared that you'll realize I'm not worth the trouble. Scared that I'm going to lose you just when I was starting to believe I could have something real. I'll come over, he said immediately. You shouldn't be alone. What if there are photographers? Then it gets worse, he said simply. But we face it together. Isn't that what we said? Together, she agreed quietly. He was at her door 20 minutes later. When she opened it, when he saw her tear-stained face, he pulled her into his arms, holding her while she cried. They sat together on her couch, her head on his shoulder, neither speaking because words felt inadequate. Finally, she pulled back. This is only going to get harder. My father won't let this go quietly. People will judge you, question your motives. He cupped her face in his hands. Let them. I know why I'm here. My daughter knows. You know. That's all that matters. But what if it affects your business? Your daughter? He smiled, sad but resolute. Then I'll deal with it. One day at a time, with the people I love beside me. The word hung in the air, unspoken until now. She stared at him, searching his face for uncertainty. But all she saw was honesty, raw and complete. You love me? She whispered. He nodded. I do. I think I have since that first night when you asked me to stay. Fresh tears spilled, but these were different, born from overwhelming emotion, from being loved exactly as she was. I love you too, she said. I love you and your daughter and the way you stayed when everyone else would have run. He kissed her then, deep and certain, pouring everything he couldn't say into the contact. When they pulled apart, both smiling despite everything, the world felt less overwhelming. His phone buzzed. Reporters had shown up at the shop, asking questions. It's starting, he said quietly. She nodded, her own phone lighting up. Her father's office demanding a meeting. Friends suddenly concerned. Strangers offering opinions. They sat together, phones buzzing, the world pressing in. But between them, in the small space where their hands were joined, there was stillness. There was certainty. Whatever comes next, she said softly, we face it together. Together, he agreed. The confrontation came 3 days later in her father's office, top floor of a building bearing the family name. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the entire city, a visual reminder of power. She had asked him to come, knowing she would need his presence. He agreed without hesitation. They rode the elevator in silence, his hand holding hers. When the doors opened onto polished marble, she felt him tense, his working-class roots reacting to the casual display of wealth. They walked across the marble toward massive double doors. When they reached them, she paused. You don't have to do this. If I walk away now, his voice was soft but certain, then he wins. Not because of what he says, but because we let fear separate us. Her father stood with his back to them, silhouetted against windows, hands clasped behind him. He didn't turn immediately, making them wait. Finally he turned, his gaze settling on the man beside her with undisguised contempt. So this is him, the mechanic. With all due respect, sir, he said quietly, your daughter deserves to be loved. Not for her name or trust fund. She deserves to be seen and valued and chosen every single day. That's what I offer her." Her father's expression didn't change, but something flickered. Love is a luxury for people who can afford it. My daughter needs security, someone who can provide for her. I provide for myself, she interjected firmly. I don't need someone to take care of me financially. I need someone who sees me as a person, not a possession. Her father's attention snapped to her, frustration showing. You think you're independent? Everything you have, I gave you. The chair, the vehicle modifications, the equipment. All of it purchased with family money. The words were designed to cut. For a moment, she wavered. But then she felt his hand, steady and warm, and remembered the strength she had built. You're right, she said quietly. You did help me. I'm grateful. But gratitude isn't the same as ownership. You don't get to dictate who I love or how I live my life. Her father's jaw tightened. If you continue this relationship, there will be consequences. Financial, social, familial. Then I choose him, she said, voice growing stronger. I choose love and honesty and someone who stayed. I choose a life that's mine, even if it means losing your approval. The silence was heavy. Her father turned his attention back to the mechanic, studying him. And you? Do you have any idea what you're taking on? Before he could answer, she spoke, voice sharp. I'm sitting right here. Don't talk about me like I'm not in the room or like I'm a burden. Her father ignored her. Well? Answer the question. He met her father's eyes without flinching. I understand that your daughter is the strongest person I've ever met. I understand that she is brilliant and kind and sees the world in ways most people miss. I understand that she uses a wheelchair and that comes with challenges, but those don't define her any more than my hands define me. He took a step forward. And I understand you're trying to scare me away because you think I'm not good enough. You're probably right, I'm not. But I love her anyway, and I'm going to spend every day trying to be worthy of that love, whether you approve or not. The declaration hung in the air, raw and honest. Her father stared at him, then walked to his desk, picked up a folder. I had you investigated. What I found was exactly what I expected. A man barely keeping his business afloat, raising a child alone. He looked up. I also found something I didn't expect. Every person I spoke to said you're honest, hardworking, devoted, and that you'd give someone your last dollar if they needed it. He closed the folder. Those are admirable qualities, but they don't change that you come from different worlds. She had heard enough. She wheeled forward, positioning herself between them. You want to talk about reality? 3 years ago, after my accident, almost everyone disappeared. Friends stopped calling. Relatives looked at me with pity. Even you started treating me differently, like I was a problem instead of a daughter. Her voice broke, but she pushed through. Then I met him. By accident. At the wrong table. And he saw me. Not the wheelchair, not the family name. He saw me and chose to stay. That's the reality that matters. Her father was quiet, expression softening almost imperceptibly. I'm trying to protect you, he said, sounding like a father for the first time. From disappointment, from struggle. I'm trying to protect myself too, she replied gently. From loneliness, from being so afraid of getting hurt that I never let myself be happy. Can't you understand that? Her father looked at them both, at the unity that spoke of something built on mutual respect and chosen commitment. He sighed, carrying the weight of reluctant acceptance. I don't like this. I don't approve. But I see you've made your choice, and nothing I say will change it. Thank you, she said quietly. Her father held up a hand. Don't thank me yet. If this continues, it will be under scrutiny. You'll need to be stronger than you've ever been. We will be, he said, hand finding hers. Together. Her father nodded once, then turned back to the windows, dismissing them. They left hand in hand, not speaking until the elevator doors closed. Then she turned to him and laughed, full of relief and joy and the giddy freedom of having faced her greatest fear and survived. He pulled her close, kissing her head. That was terrifying, she said. Absolutely terrifying, he agreed. But we did it. We stayed. Now what? Now, he said, smiling, we live, we love. We build something that's ours. We keep choosing each other every single day. She kissed him then, deep and certain, in the descending elevator that carried them away from her old life toward something new. When the doors opened, they emerged into afternoon sunlight, leaving the shadow behind, stepping forward into a future they would write themselves. The months that followed were not without struggle. There were days when outside judgment felt crushing, when reporters showed up asking invasive questions, when she received messages from people telling her she was making a mistake. There were moments of doubt, late nights when fear whispered that maybe this was too hard, maybe love wasn't enough. But then there were the other moments. His daughter's birthday party, held in the park where they'd first talked, where she helped plan every detail. The night he came with flowers and his daughter, both nervous and excited, to ask if she would consider making their accidental family official. The way his daughter looked at her with hope-filled eyes and asked, "Will you be my almost mom for real?" The small wedding they planned, intimate and personal, held in the coffee shop where they'd fallen in love. His daughter serving as flower girl, scattering petals with joy. Her father attending, sitting in the back, his presence a gesture of acceptance. The moment when they exchanged vows they'd written, simple promises about staying and choosing and seeing each other. The kiss that followed, witnessed by mechanics and photographers and family members who had learned that love doesn't care about obstacles. Now, a year later, they stood together in the apartment they'd chosen, accessible and warm, filled with photographs and drawings and the accumulated evidence of a life built together. His daughter was asleep in her room, decorated with a sign that read, "Our Family," with 3 stick figures holding hands. He came up behind her as she stood by the window, wrapping his arms around her. "What are you thinking about?" "I'm thinking about wrong tables," she said. "About how sometimes the best things happen when we end up exactly where we didn't plan to be." He kissed her temple. "Best mistake I ever made." She turned in his arms. "Not a mistake. A gift. We just had to be brave enough to stay and see what it became." He kissed her then, soft and lingering, a kiss that tasted like home and promise. In the other room, his daughter stirred in her sleep, dreaming whatever dreams children dream when they're loved and safe. And in that moment, in that apartment filled with love and the beautiful mess of everyday life, they had everything that mattered. Not because it was easy or perfect or what anyone had planned, but because when faced with a choice between fear and love, between walking away and staying, they had chosen each other. Every single day they chose each other. Sometimes love finds you at the wrong table, in the wrong moment, when you're not looking for it and don't think you deserve it. Sometimes it arrives in the form of a stranger who sees past your wheelchair or your worn boots to the person underneath. Sometimes it asks you to be brave, to fight, to stand up to forces that say it won't work. And sometimes, if you're very lucky and very courageous, you say yes. You choose to stay. You choose to build something beautiful out of an accidental beginning. Because in the end, the only thing that matters is the person beside you and the choice you make to keep choosing them, no matter what the world says, no matter how hard it gets. If this story touched something in you, if you've ever felt unseen or unworthy or afraid to hope for connection, remember this: you are not the limitations others place on you. You are the courage you show when you let someone see you. You are the strength it takes to ask someone to stay. You are worthy of love that sees you, chooses you, and never walks away. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone sitting at their own wrong table wondering if they'll ever find the right person. Because sometimes the best love stories don't begin with perfect timing. They begin with 2 imperfect people who choose to stay, who choose to see each other, who choose love even when it would be easier to walk away. That's where the real magic happens. That's where healing begins. At the wrong table, with the right heart, in the presence of someone brave enough to stay.